Thanks for checking in on the State of Basketball Podcast, episode 54. I'm Adam Miller, and I'm here with Jaren Will each and every week, and we are going to be bringing you the news and notes on all 11 Division I schools in the state of Indiana, because in 49 states,
it's just basketball.
So if you're just joining us for this episode because you're checking on the Boilermakers, welcome. We're glad to have you here. If you're, a loyal listener, and you've listened to all the other ones, thank you. But just so you know, we have done previews on Ball State, Butler, Evansville, Indiana, Indiana State, IU Indianapolis, Notre Dame, and Purdue Fort Wayne. So if you're listening to this one and you're a Southern Indiana or a Valpo fan, just know you're next. Your time's coming.
Yep.
And we are just as excited, but our brains work in alphabetical order.
If they work.
Part.
Yeah.
It's just a stretch in the first place to admit.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're keeping track at home, Purdue is still in the Big Ten. A lot of teams were added to the Big Ten, none left. So Purdue is still there. Unfortunately, you throwing shade at the Big Ten?
Man, I mean, I guess I can't be mad at like the Rutgers and the Penn States for being in there when we've got UCLA and Washington and Oregon and USC.
Yeah,
it's just
for a while people were like, Rutgers, Nebraska, Maryland, why are they in here? They're so far away. The Big Ten said, all right, bet we're gonna go even further.
What's all about TV markets? I mean, obviously we understand it. We're not stupid, but in the Big Ten's benefit, they at least didn't name their league after something geographic. Unfortunately, they named it with a number. So there are almost 20 teams. There's 18 teams, so they're almost twice the amount of teams that they started with, which is just silly. We're getting up there. 18 in the ACC, 18 in the Big Ten. I think there's only going to be 16 in the SEC.
Yeah, something like that.
Because isn't this year the last year of the Big 12? Because then Oklahoma and Texas leave after this season. It's like that one.
Or is Oklahoma and no, they're in the SEC now.
No, they aren't. Are they? I don't think so.
Pretty sure. I might be making that up. You probably really love this content from us. So while Adam's looking that up, also, Purdue didn't leave the Big Ten, still there.
Oh, yeah. July 1st, 2024.
Yeah, dude.
Last year was the year of the Big 12. Okay.
Yeah. Come at me again.
Man, after COVID, it all just kills me. It all doesn't make any sense.
But Purdue, still in the Big Ten. Matt Painter, still the head coach. Year 20 at the helm. He is 472 and 208. So that is a 69.4% win percentage.
It's so many. That's so many wins, man.
Yeah. So, and I believe is this 447 and 203 his conference record?
That's his Purdue record.
Okay.
His 1 year at where? Before Purdue.
I don't remember.
Hot dogs, Jaren. They're hot dogs. You're the one who told me this phrase from someone that you know very well. We've had them on the show.
Yeah, I just am not. I don't remember the school.
We've had them on the show. Where do they have ties to?
A lot of places.
The Missouri Valley School. Connor, I'm sorry. I'm sorry he can't remember this about your life.
What?
The Salukis, man.
Oh,
he was at Southern Illinois.
I didn't
for 1 year before he came over to Purdue.
My bad.
Connor, I'm sorry. You know what?
If our intern would have outlined this for us, I would have known, but our intern let us down.
That's payback for me not getting John G on our episode where we had Connor.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, so last year as you might painfully remember, Purdue lost in the national championship against UConn. But while they, on the records, they were the second best team in basketball. According to the metrics, they were the third best team. They did finish the season 34-5 and 17-3, which was first in the Big Ten, and they won the conference by 3 games. So pretty successful season. Didn't quite hit the final mark that they wanted by hanging a banner, but still wildly successful for Purdue. Definitely the team in Indiana that performed the best.
Yeah, I mean, one of our 2 runner-ups. One of our 3
runner-ups.
Dude, I just made the same mistake on the last episode. One of our 3 runners up.
We also had this conversation 3 episodes ago.
And I said it so
I think it's runners up.
Yeah, they finished 3rd behind, obviously, number 1, Connecticut. Number 2 is Houston. And then here's a wild one. Number 4 at the end of the season in Torvik didn't even win a game in the NCAA tournament. They lost in the first round. Auburn. Finished number 4 above Iowa State, Arizona, North Carolina, all these teams that went to the Sweet, Illinois, all these teams. Alabama finished 14th below Auburn, who didn't even win a game. Silly.
But I think that's a testament to the story that the metrics can't tell.
Right.
But let's talk about preseason.
Yeah.
What is their rankings and predicted or projected schedule or record, going into the preseason?
Purdue fans, don't freak out here. This is something that you're not used to in the last couple of years here. 17th in Torvik. You got double digits by your name. Odd. Feels weird.
Feels
weird because all last year we do our weekly rankings and we've got a spreadsheet and it was either a 1 or a 2. I don't even know that it got to a 3.
It didn't.
So it was just 1 or 2 all year long. And so 17th in the Torvik, considering you lose the 2-time National Player of the Year, Zach Edey, 17th is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So they're projected to go 20-11 this year, with going 12-8 in the Big Ten, which is, again, note the team who wins the Big Ten is not going to go 12-8. That's a 3-way projected tie for the Big Ten with Michigan State and Rutgers, 2 teams that I expect to be up there. But if you listen to our Indiana episode, we expect Indiana to be up there. Big Ten Media Day has happened, and Purdue was picked first. They had the most votes by a pretty wide margin here, and then number 2 in Big Ten Media Day was Indiana. So still projected to win the Big Ten, probably not by 3 games like you did last year, and I think maybe the year before, but still projected to win the Big Ten, which is an incredible feat nonetheless, because repeating in the Big Ten is rather difficult.
Most definitely. Let's talk about, you talked about, losing 2-time National Player of the Year. Let's talk about who they have coming back. Several guys that you'll recognize their names. The media also knows their names well, especially Braden Smith, their 6-foot junior point guard, who is, I believe, selected as the Big Ten preseason player of the year.
Correct. Rightfully so. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, you literally look at the list of the the Big Ten, all Big Ten teams from last year. He's the only returner from the first team. I think he might. He's the only returner from the first team, so he should be the preseason based on that alone. Not even talking about obviously how good he is and how productive he's been at Purdue. He should, he was, and deservedly so, the preseason Big Ten Player of the Year.
Yeah, and he he played 34 minutes per game. He has a 12 points per game, 5.8 rebounds, which is wild for being 6 foot and a point guard. 7.5 assists per game, and he shot 43% from 3. One thing to note, his assists may go down only because he doesn't have Zach Edey into the bucket, who is a walking bucket. He's really, walking double-double, really is what he is. So assists may go down. Who knows? Because guess what? They have several other 7-footers.
Yeah, boards probably go up though.
Waiting in the rafters. He also is not competing with Zach Edey for rebounds.
He gets to the rim so well, and when he runs the pick and roll, he can run that so well, and he's down there a lot to, grab those boards. Which, when you look at the next guy, Fletcher Lawyer, 6'5", the junior shooting guard, 28 minutes per game, 10 points per game, 44% from three, and only 2 rebounds. Seriously, we talked about this in every episode. When you get above 40%, like, that is elite. Like, right there, starting backcourt, 2 guys above 40% from 3. Incredible. And you're like, okay, does it get better? Yes, but just a second. Fletcher's 6'5", only had 2 rebounds per game. You're like, that's weird. It's like, well, Fletcher's. He's a shooter. He's not getting down into the paint that often. He definitely gets downhill a lot better than you would expect, and it's always like sneaky, man.
Yeah,
he's just like, all of a sudden it looks like he just walks down to the basket and just like lays one up, and it's like, where was anyone?
Yep, but he is the quintessential. Let me stand beyond the arc, catch and shoot 3.
White guy from Indiana, even though he's not really from Indiana.
Yeah. But they also have Miles Colvin, 6'5", athletic freak.
To say the least.
He's a sophomore, likely going to start. Would be surprised if he didn't. Played 8.6 minutes per game last season. Definitely an increase throughout the season. He didn't play a lot in the early part of the season, if I remember correctly, but then just kind of came alive, figured out his role, and played it outstandingly. 3.3 points per game, 41.4% from 3.
Another elite shooter.
Elite shooter. Obviously, volume on 8.6 minutes per game, not as high as Braden and Fletcher, but still, you're above 40%. That's knockdown.
Yeah. Here's where I think that if you're talking about like potential starting lineups, I think where it gets a little bit interesting, because I could see Colvin starting. I could also see Cam Heide starting. He's a 6'7" redshirt sophomore. He's also a super athlete. His dunk last year was just absurd.
Yeah.
12 minutes per game, 3.3 points, 45% from 3. Very low volume. Very, very low volume, but shot it very well. So you have 4 guys that could start, all shooting above 40%. All with Braden being with the worst one being 41.4% with Colvin. So you got elite shooters there. I'm just not sure who starts between Colvin and Heide, because there's just something that tells me that Trey Kaufman-Ren's probably going to start at the 4. And that's because we'll talk about why when we get to their newcomers. But Trey Kaufman-Renn could start at the 4, could start at the 5. Like, we could see a starting lineup of Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Miles Colvin, Cam Heide, and then Trey Kaufman-Renn at the 5. I think we'll see that lineup a lot regardless, whether it's the starting lineup or not. But Trey Kaufman-Renn, 6'9" redshirt junior, he's going to get a lot more play. You saw how like Zach Edey's minutes went up when he wasn't splitting time with Trevion Williams. Not going to be the same level of jump up because they did play together.
Yep.
But he played 17 minutes, 6.4 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, only 33% from 3. But I don't think he's not, with the amount of guys that can shoot the 3, he's not going to be asked to shoot the 3 very much.
Yeah.
And then obviously you bring back Caleb First for his 50th year, and Will Berg and Brian Waddell are back too. So, he brings back a lot. You lose Lance Jones, which is why I think I could see Miles Colvin coming in and like kind of taking that role.
Yeah.
As another guard who can, get downhill and stuff, but they don't have any transfers. They took 0 transfers.
Incoming transfers. Yeah,
correct. No one transferred in.
But
yeah.
That's why they didn't have any. They didn't have any scholarships open to.
Yeah, they were over.
They didn't even have scholarships available for the 6 recruits that they had.
Yeah,
so
which is crazy because everyone everyone was kind of watching that, but then like the people who knew were like, it's probably catching.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's gonna be out of here, and that ended up happening. He's at BYU, but he's not coming in, so we don't need to talk about him. The reason why I just think that Matt Painter is very successful with two bigs, and I think that the team will be very successful with two bigs, and they've got Daniel Jacobson. Like Wilberg is still there. He's like 7'1", 7'1",
7'2", maybe.
Okay, he's above 7 foot. And then you've got Daniel Jacobson, who like just won a gold medal in like FIBA or something.
Yeah, I think so.
U18,
yeah.
And he's apparently been like very impressive.
Yeah.
And so I could absolutely see him as the fifth starter. If not a fifth starter, then getting a lot of run at the 5, playing alongside Trey Kaufman-Renn. Don't see him being ED 2.0. The fact that he's also 7'4". They've got different games, but he's also not as heavy as Zach was.
That's true. Maybe a little bit more athletic.
Yeah, but they also bring in Jakari Harris, 6'3". I could see him getting some pretty heavy play time at that Lance Jones role, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then they bring in CJ Cox, he's 6'3". Jack Benter, 6'5", and then a short guy here, Riley Burgess, coming in at a measly 6'11". So
yeah, I mean, man. Relatively speaking, he's
never gonna get some time. Yeah, I know. That's crazy.
All right, let's look at their games. Right, so they've got a few games that should definitely watch out for. They do play an exhibition game at Creighton on October 26th. Creighton, really well coached team, should be pretty good. So that'll be a fun little test of a game that doesn't mean anything. It's just a game to play. They play Alabama at home. Alabama is, according to the metrics, 9th in the nation. So a perennially good team. That is on November 19th.
Hang on. Our intern did something.
Okay, well, while he's correcting our intern, we might need a new intern, dog.
15th. The Alabama game's on the 15th.
Okay, November 15th. I thought you were going to say the ranking was off.
No.
Okay.
Sorry, I was looking at the dates on the notes and I was like,
because
a doubleheader.
they play at home against Alabama on the 19th, and then they travel to Marquette.
Same day
on the 19th. No, they play Alabama at home on the 15th. Then they travel to Marquette, who is preseason 25, on November 19th. Then they go to San Diego, kind of around Thanksgiving time. They play in the Rady Children's Invitational in San Diego. They play NC State, who is preseason 58. It's a Final Four rematch.
Mm-hmm.
That's on the 28th of
I love
November.
When that happens.
Yeah.
I love when NCAA tournament teams match
end up having a match.
Same year.
Yeah.
When they're non-conference opponents.
Because,
right. Obviously.
Yeah.
That's always fun when they intentionally do it. And I don't know if that's just how it worked out with the draw, but probably.
And then they will, the next day on the 29th of November, play either BYU or Ole Miss. And that'll be the invitational. Then they go back home. Our intern didn't put the date, but I believe it's in December, maybe like the 7th of December, maybe something like that. Adam will find out for me, but they play
December 21st.
December 21st.
No, 14th.
December 14th. I said the 7th. It is divisible by 7, so it's on the right track. But they play Texas A&M, who is preseason 12th in Indianapolis. So that'll be a fun game to watch. Then they go to Auburn.
Not to Auburn.
They go to a neutral site, play Auburn in Birmingham.
Yeah. Completely neutral.
12/21, so December 21st. And Auburn is preseason 7th. So, no surprise, Purdue plays some heavy hitters in the non-con.
Yeah, if you're a Purdue fan and you are a Purdue fan who loves to make fun of Indiana, you just have to point at your non-conference schedule and be like, this is what a real team does. Like, we were both projected top 1 and 2 in the Big Ten, and our Big Ten's in our non-conference schedule is 20 times harder than yours. Like it's
yeah.
like, I mean, seriously, if you want to rub it in an Indiana fan's face, just talk about the non-conference schedule, because it's very difficult.
Yes.
Like very difficult. I mean, that's NC State's 58th, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 top 25, 5 top 40 teams, and 6 top 60 teams out of your 11 games that you get, plus your Creighton exhibition.
Yeah. Hey, Indiana does play Tennessee in an exhibition, so
Their exhibition is their hardest game on paper, which is so funny.
Funny to see. And then Big Ten play starts. They do have double plays against Indiana, Rutgers, and Michigan.
That Rutgers and Purdue, man. It's the curse.
It is a very scary thing when you are Purdue and need to play at the rack.
Or at home.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Or play Rutgers. Rutgers is the bad man to Indiana teams.
Yeah, so let's talk about April time, right? We are sitting down, reflecting, meditating on the season.
Mm-hmm.
What does Purdue need to do for us to say they were successful?
I think that Purdue should be aiming to win the Big Ten. And, win the Big Ten, whether it's outright or tied. And then, if you come in second, I think that's okay too. But I think your goal is to make the Big Ten and probably the second weekend. I mean, Final Four is not out of the question, like definitely. Mm-hmm. But I think that when you're like projecting a Final Four team, I mean, that's just hard. I mean, look at how many teams from the Final Four this last year were projected Final Four teams? Purdue and UConn.
Definitely not NC State.
Yeah, and then I can't remember the other team. UConn beat Bama in the Final Four, so maybe 3. Maybe 3 teams were projected. So I mean, I could see it happening, but it's just going to be tough. There's a lot of pretty good teams this year, and I think making the second weekend, if you're 17th preseason, you make the second weekend, you're one of the 8 or 16 teams left. So that's obviously up to your preseason ranking. And then if you win the Big Ten regular season, that would be your third three-peat. So the first time was in 1934, 35, and 36, and the last time was 94, 95, 96. So you could have 23, 24, 25 as Purdue's third three-peat in the Big Ten, which would be crazy, especially because of how good the Big Ten is.
Yeah.
So yep. I think it's doable, and I think that their record was projected 12-8 with a tie for first in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
it's not going to be 12-8. It's probably not going to be a year where you win the Big Ten by 3 games. And I think people probably said that last year about Purdue, and they did it anyway. So they might, we might just get this thrown in our faces, and that's what Matt Painter does. But I think that this will be win the Big Ten by 1 or 2 games. Or tie for first in the Big Ten, and then you're happy, and then make the second weekend. And then, if you want to win the Big Ten tournament again, sure. But I don't know. You did it, But what just get ready. Just like I think Matt Painter even said, like after last season, like they just didn't even celebrate winning the Big Ten tournament. They were just like, I don't know, man. We just want to go.
Business as usual.
Want to go to the NCAA tournament.
Business as usual.
Let's talk about what we think they're going to do.
Yep.
So they've got that very tough non-con, like we said, 6 top 60 teams in their non-conference, plus that exhibition, which doesn't count towards their record, so we won't predict that. But, I think that, unfortunately, this is probably the year that the non-conference undefeated streak ends.
I think so.
Because this one's very hard. I mean, Maui, you won Maui last, like I think last year's was harder, but this one is harder, and your team is on paper not quite as not as good. A little bit very good, but not quite as good as last year, because last year was incredible.
Yeah, for sure.
Not like a knock on them. And let me ask you a question, Jaren. Their last non-conference loss came in 2020. Can you tell me who they lost to?
North Carolina.
No. Right conference, though.
Duke.
No. It's a team that knocked out an Indiana team in the tournament recently.
Virginia.
No. More recent than that. A recent Final Four team as well in the last 2 years.
I got no idea.
Knocked out the Hoosiers in 2023 tournament. Miami. Miami. Purdue's last non-conference loss, if I'm reading this correctly, was Miami at Miami, December 8th, 2000.
Huh.
A long time.
That is a grip.
So if you don't lose until December 8th, count it as four years.
Oh yeah.
4 calendar years.
There it is.
So what do you think? I think that the 4 hardest games, Alabama, Marquette, A&M, Auburn. You have either BYU or Ole Miss in that thing. But I mean, you're going to beat NC State, and I think you probably win. You probably win the Invitational in San Diego.
I think so.
I think going 2-2 in those 4 games is impressive.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So what, that'd be 9-2 in the non-con?
Because I think they win the rest of those. So 9-2 in the non-con. And then in the Big Ten, I think we projected Indiana at what?
15-5.
15-5 or 14-6 maybe.
I can tell you. We projected Indiana at 14-6.
Okay, I think that both these teams can win the Big Ten, and I think that for the most amount of chaos in the state, I'm going to project Purdue to also go 14-6, and Indiana and Purdue, and maybe another team, but it would be much better if it was just Indiana and Purdue split the Big Ten title and both go 14-6. So 14 plus 9, that's 23. 23-8.
Yeah.
31 games, 23-8. I mean, take your first non-con loss in 4 seasons, but I think you take that. I don't think Purdue's gonna be taking much of a step back if at all this season. Obviously losing Zach Edey is huge, but you got the Big Ten preseason player of the year. He wants to win the whole thing. He wants to win some games in March and make it back to the Final Four. Big question for me is Trey Kaufman-Renn 4 or 5 mostly. That's the one thing I'm not sure about.
And I think we'll find out pretty quickly into the season. For sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they probably already know.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
So sure they do.
It's going to be tough for the opponents to play against. Yay, the bad man's gone. Oh, well, they got another 6'4" guy and a 7'4" guy and a 7'2" guy. Oh, and they got this, all Big Ten potential guy playing at the 4 and the 5. So, not to mention, their elite guard play who can all shoot the 3 ball and at an elite level, like we talked about. That's all I got on the Boilermakers.
All right. Well, in that case, clock is showing quadruple zeros. So it's time for us to get out of here. Thanks for checking in on the State of Basketball podcast. We will see you next time. And remember, in 49 states,
it's just basketball.